with the best father and son team on the internet. It's time for Homie and the Dude.
What is poppin', party people? It's my new intro. I'm just playing it out. This is Homie and the Dude. We are the father and son TTRPG and MMA podcast. And if you like our stuff, we've got it all on homieandthedude.com. And we are delighted to be here with Matt from Dungeon Glitch. Matt, we've been admiring you from afar. You are one of the shining lights in the TTRPG Twitter community. And we are just really, really looking forward to a chat with you today. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. This is fantastic. Super excited.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this for a while. We can't tell you how many people at the end of podcasts that we've talked to in the TTRPG community have been like, you need to talk to Matt. And have been like, not only do you need to talk to Matt, but you guys will get along with Matt. So literally every single person in the TTRPG community at this point has told us that. And so, this has been one that we've been very excited for, and we're, vice versa, right back at you. So dude, let me ask, because I've been from afar, seeing all this stuff. And I think something that really blew me away in amongst all the amazing TTRPG stuff that you do, you actually also create a bit of music. And I wanted to actually talk about that a little bit, because for me, music is a huge part of my life. Like people often ask you the question, would you rather be blind or deaf, or, in these would you rather situations. And I'm always like, I cannot lose my ears. Like I love music so much. Like I literally could never lose music and that kind of stuff. So it's massively important to me. And I want to ask you where your passion for music kind of stems and what's led you to now creating and putting your music out there for people to listen to.
So the music thing was something that I guess it's multifaceted for me, because I've never at all felt talented with it or that it ever came natural. And when I decided to get into embracing all of my creative potential, it was just on the list. It's like, okay, I got to try out music. I have no idea what I'm doing, but there's no obstacle I'm going to let stop me. We're going to figure it out. And I feel like I am an absolute imposter with it, because I have no idea how it's any good. And then I had this AI keyboard that would help me do it. It's like you could push a button and it would make a chord, and no matter what button you push afterwards, it would always sound good. And that stupid thing broke, and that was very expensive. So now I'm kind of on hiatus, but I still have a third album coming out. So now it's just I just push buttons. Does that sound good? The algorithm says yes. I push a button. Does that sound good? No, that sounds horrible. Okay, this works. Drum beat, sprinkle in some random stuff, and it's just okay, cool, done. And then I have friends who are like, this is trash. Okay, cool, what do you got for me? So yeah, my music is it's a real hit or miss project that I just didn't stop on. And I got some really cool friends out of it that helped me with it. And it just became a little de-stressor after a while. So I would just kind of hear music, listen to random stuff, take notes. That's inspiring. That's cool. Wonder if I could take something from that and do my own way. And that's suddenly I have 3 albums.
And you know what? It's super interesting that you said it sounds like a very unconventional start to music. A lot of people are born. They say they're born with the ear. They can hear the rhythm, they can hear the tune. They can sing a song and it comes very naturally. I know me personally, that's not something that ever came to me. I was never super gifted. I have a bit of rhythm with dancing, because dancing is something that I spent a lot of time doing as a young person. But music was never one of those ones that I couldn't coordinate my hands for guitar, drumming, doing 4 different things at once was a bit weird for me. And, bits like that were always interesting. So I'm really interested in the way that, you're making this music and you're going about it through, AI potential and using algorithms. What program are you making the music in? Are you using Logic, Ableton? What project are you making your music in?
So I didn't know what I was doing when I got into it. I just kind of was just determined to figure it out. So for the last 2 years, anytime I saw like music programs, I just bought them. So there'd be like a Black Friday music sample blowout, and it's like super expensive. I'm like, I'm determined to do this, purchase. And I come back a year later, and then I find out that, oh wait, these files don't all work together. Like this is only in like Music X or something like that. This one here only works in this. And it's like, I got Fruity Loops. What do you got for me? And, so it's like, make something over here, export, make something over here, export. Put it all in, and some of it works. And it's like, yeah, I was never really great with music starting out. Like my greatest music achievement was either a high school band where I was playing guitar to meet girls, or or the fact that I was really, really good at a rock band, The Game. And so now it's like, well, I still push buttons and it makes music, and that's about as far as I get. So that was just, I just don't give up on it.
That's amazing. And you're using Fruit Loops, an industry standard. Well, I know my friend who's currently studying at university also uses Fruit Loops as well. And it's one that I also spent a little bit of time when I was in high school using as well, when I was doing music technology for a little bit. It's a good program. It's a really, really good program. And I'd be really interested to ask, your genre that you kind of make. I don't know, like when I've listened to your music, especially your most recent release, the You Are Enough album, it definitely gives me like lo-fi kind of like hip hoppy vibes. Is that the kind of genre that you'd put yourself in? And how did you kind of, through this being determined, how did you get to the genre that you exist in currently, or operate in currently? Because that's an interesting genre.
It's funny because like my music taste is all over the place. Even right before this, I was just listening to 90s rap, like
nice.
Loud. Like we were chatting, and it's just Wu-Tang. And then but like last night, but like my typical chill stuff is lo-fi, which one of my musician friends just kind of like, he's like, hey, you're really gonna like this, because like before that I was listening to just like rap beats, guitar instrumentals, just random stuff, and just piecing it all together. And like I fell in love with lo-fi. And then like cyber and synth is kind of like where I'm at right now. And then sprinkling rap back in, I play with the trap beats because they're just too good. It's like I feel like it's like mathematically made to be perfectly enjoyable, and I'm like, I need some of that. So just put it behind the music, and everything just kind of a little bit of vocals here and there, and it's just something that I could work to. Is this something that I could put in the background? Is this something I could play D&D to? And it's just like I don't really have like an emotional message to put out in the music. I just try to make something that's functional.
Yeah.
Something that I want to come back to, something that I can recommend to people. And otherwise it's just going to be, I'm just going to make a bunch of party albums and hopefully one goes viral.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
It's interesting because like that whole concept of mathematics and the human brain, and somehow tapping into, I mean, we think about this, we step away from our human existence and look at our, like, we're just animals, creatures. There's something about music that engages in our brains at certain points, and I guess it's different for everyone in certain ways, that is super like different, man. It's just different than just about anything else. It feels almost
intrinsic.
Yeah, it goes way back.
Your primal system kind of thing.
I think so too. And it's so when you're in that space and you're creating, how much are you relying on strict mathematical formulas and that, or how much are you just going all the way back into what really, really resonates for you, or is it some other process that you're using? Because I know when I used to dabble a little bit, and I'd get lost for fucking hours, like literally, like you'd wake up, you'd come up from the computer, and 5 hours later you'd be like still working on this little thing.
Yeah, no, that happens. So I for me it's more intuitive, because I'm not familiar with the process. My wife's a musician. She plays classical violin, and she's toured Europe doing it, and it's just like she understands music theory, and I am not. I am a goblin with a pencil in my teeth over here, and it's like I'm just trying to make it work. And so like I'll hear a drum beat or something from like a popular song, and then I kind of know from like a marketing sense that, hey, that must be good. So if I can find something that speed, like, oh yeah, The Weeknd has this beat that's like that. I'm like, all right, I think I have a sample like that, so I'll start there. And next thing you know, it's like super catchy. I'm like, oh no. And I'll send it, I'll show my wife, and she's like, no, your timing's way off. It's like, all right, I'll start over.
It's nice to have that level of almost like expert feedback around you, though. Do you know what I mean? Like I can imagine there's an air of like, you know, if you were just an echo chamber of your own opinion, you know, sat in a room by yourself, you know, you'd probably be like, damn, this is a fat beat. And then, you know, you said now, and so some musicians like that's really out of you know,
get that
time.
awkward silence from your friends when you're like, oh, I love this, let's check it out. And people are like, you know, you feel like you can't read them, but if you really are honest with yourself, you can read that it's not what you thought it was at all.
Yeah.
That feedback is so important.
Thanks for watching this episode. We really appreciate you supporting Homie and the Dude.
Please hit us with the Holy Trinity, like our Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us on Instagram. Just search @Homie and the Dude. It all really helps. Do you know what I'm really interested in? The reason why I really wanted to ask you about your music is because for me, when I watch things like movies, the soundtrack is in often cases one of the things that makes or breaks a movie for me. You know, when I read a book, I actually like to soundtrack my reading experience based on whatever I'm listening to, because for me, that as a dyslexic, it helps me get in the zone and read more and you know, for longer periods of time and so on and so forth. I want to ask you because, you know, in the world that we're in TTRPG, in this space, you know, we're in a game where we're creating immersion, you know, we're trying to, you know, envelop ourselves in this imaginary space. How much is music, do you feel like, important and also like a part of your experience when you go about doing your TTRPG stuff?
So I guess as a DM and also dyslexic, it's sort of, so yeah, the music helps when I am writing, because I have a subscription to this this service. It's actually called Focus Music, and it's scientifically specifically made to help you do your thing. And I use that when I'm like really struggling to focus on stuff. Otherwise, you know, I'll just play my stuff. But because I hear that, I try to blend my thing to be sort of like that. So there's like this atmospheric kind of deep blend. And I don't know the proper words for it because I'm not trained for it. I just like, ooh, okay. And then if it works, it works. And then for when playing or anything like that, the background filler kind of helps for, I think, I like to keep it there for anyone who might be nervous of dead air or just to kind of keep people moving. Because if I don't know any of the science behind it, but it's like if your heartbeat kind of matches a beat that you're hearing, you could kind of set into the proper rhythm. So I get something kind of chill, and it keeps people from getting anxious or I don't know, it just kind of controls the mood. So if I can make cool stuff and it helps people, that's what I want.
So when you're saying with people, are you talking about you've got music playing in the background for your players, or when people are listening to your content?
I guess it'd be for the players, because I don't really have any content right now, but I do recommend the music to people who are playing. So I'll hear streams using it, and like that really makes me happy. So yeah.
I was gonna say, because the first place I ever heard your music was actually on Amber's on one of her their streams, and it was amazing. I absolutely loved it. I was like, I actually put in the chat, I was like, I need to know who this belongs to. And I checked out. So, you know, it's interesting to me because I feel like a really important part of the TTRPG experience is, you know, music. And something, you know, I'm definitely bummed out about with our actual play that we're doing at the moment is because of the recording setup that we have, because we're, you know, playing with people in America and here in the UK, and we're doing remote stuff. It means that me playing music live for the players like I usually do for like any home games that I run isn't as viable, because it can mess with all the audio that we're recording, you know, otherwise. And so, you know, that's an issue. However, we do add stuff in post, but I definitely feel like it's taken away a little bit from the experience that I deliver, because as a dungeon master, I use, you know, so it's like sounds and to be fair, to give you credit as well, I'm not the fantasy music guy either. I'm like in combat playing Wu-Tang Clan as well, and like doing that kind of stuff. To they walk into some sort of party or whatever, and I'll be playing some sort of more electronic music, and I'll be like, the DJ is making the music, but with magic. It's not it's not a desk, it's just magic. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's really, really important and enhances games. And it's something that, I mean, like I said, I've been bummed about with our actual play that's been bumming me out. But I want to ask, you've been in so many different, streams. I see you, in a different stream every week, it seems. Do you find like streams that you're in that do incorporate music and stuff? Do you find yourself more immersed? Do you find yourself getting more into it? Or do you find actually to remain clear-headed and not have that distraction, it can sometimes help? What's your kind of stance on that when you're playing?
I guess I have a couple opinions on that. So one, if you're not using it, and for the DM, I understand if you're running a stream, if you're running a game, you're doing all this, you have a lot going on. If you're not doing it, I get it. If you're not into it, that's fine too. For the people who do put the music in and run things in the background and actually like manage it, major respect. Because I know some people will actually like do the soundtrack per scene as you do. And I know that can be difficult. It's a lot to manage and keeping up with it. As a player on the other side of that production, I'm impressed by it. And when it works, it's really fun. If it is the fantasy music, I see that as incredibly thoughtful on the from the DM. And it does help with the mood. But for sometimes for me, like fantasy music can be kind of goofy. And so it's like everywhere you go, and it's just like some like random loot music. It's like, oh, here we go. And then the battle music always sounds like there's a dragon attacking or something. It's just me and some dude just talking aggressively. And and then sometimes, but for me, like using the more modernish music is kind of like where I am, not only because it's different and I like to do things differently, but also I think it's a way to elicit more familiar feelings to people from their real life, but they can then bridge it back to their experience in the game without trying to be like, here come the horns and the harps every time. It's like, no, here's some random little trap beat because you're in a little cantina. See what happens. So,
I think so too. I think it's there's so many different genres. Why not why not use not loot music?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was just thinking, like, as we were just talking, what went through my mind was, what is it about, when we talk about our favorite actual plays, what if you could nail what it is about that? Is it the cast, the interaction of the cast? Is it that there's graphics playing on the screen? Is it the set design that they have? Is it the DM style? Like,
is it the plot itself?
Is it the plot? Like, I mean, maybe it'd be cool maybe to just all three of us share what our go-to, what our little sweet spot is. When we see it and it's done well, that's the thing that really sort of works for us.
So what's cool about actual plays that we like?
Yeah.
Maybe like, I don't know, like to give you I think what you're saying is something along the lines of like, I know for me, like I really appreciate the camaraderie. Like for me, if a group of players get along really well, then it makes it more like I could be watching pretty much any plot as long as like, for example, the original Dimension 20 crew, like watching, the Fantasy High crew in any of their campaigns. I've watched them in, their Candy Game of Thrones one. I've watched them in their sci-fi one that they're doing at the moment. I've watched them, in all these different ones. And the reason I come back is because it's that crew, and I love the interaction.
Characters, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. For me, it's definitely the players. And even I love a DM, but also you can replace a DM. But for me, it's the players' connectivity. I feel like that's for me.
Okay,
where I sit.
Where are you, Matt?
I agree. And I think about it too, like even from like a marketing perspective, if you look at what clips get taken the most out of like Critical Role and stuff like that, it's the outtakes. It's where people are messing with each other. It's the relationship between the players, and it's usually the jokes. And it's almost like I've never like really watched Critical Role. I never but it's I watch the highlight reels. I watch all the clips, all the commercials, all that stuff. None of it involves story. I have no idea what's going on, but I know these people because it's always like, oh, here's Laura and Liam being brother and sister again, and then just goofing around and stuff like that. Like, that's awesome. And then you watch the show and like, no, I need more of that. I couldn't just hang out with you guys. How about that? What about that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you sold me on. So
I fully agree with that. That's a really interesting. That's a really interesting point.
I would add.
I like that from the marketing standpoint.
I agree.
It's a smart. Yeah,
we're actually clipping out a blooper from our last live stream as well, just randomly, but we hadn't really thought too much. We hadn't linked it together to.
It's a good shot.
That's actually
charming.
Yeah,
who's the people behind it? Like you just said, I like the cast, I like the crew, the people think. It's like no better way to get to know them than to see them as they actually are, and not when they're doing a Thor voice for 4 hours. So
yeah,
you're not wrong.
I think the other thing for me though is along with that, and maybe it's just because I'm sappy, but I do like those moments. Those moments where. So I guess counterbalancing the funny stuff, because I love the funny stuff, but also the really like those crystal clear, serious, emotional moments where it's either the DM is just having a moment as an NPC. Like I can remember, Brennan Lee Mulligan a couple times just talking about, a character that's dying or whatever it is, like not to be too like morbid about it, but like these real like emotional moments are real. I guess it's the same thing that gets us in movies, like whatever our interest is in movies, I guess is probably translatable to what gets us in actual plays as well.
I would agree with that in a sense. And like, I would say, especially, I know you, when Tom and I talk about like, and we often have like role playing like theory conversations, I guess is what we kind of classify it as, is like being like, what makes a good role player? Like, how do we like get better? Like, what can I do to get better? That kind of thing. And we often talk about, finding a reason to say yes, being the assist man who, lays up other people so that they can be the hero of the moment, and that kind of thing. But I agree with you. I think having a range of dynamics of character is really important. And I think, in my personal opinion, someone who does that amazing is my mother and she's in our actual play. And I've never seen anyone hit like moments where they are like in tears and pulling us all into tears. And then like a second later, like joking with you. And it's just, it's really like beautiful dynamic range that I think, some people really struggle to hit. And I would agree with you. I would say that's something else that when it does happen, I think is definitely a lot rarer. I'm not sure if you would agree with this, Matt. A lot of TTRPG feels a lot of finding the humor in the moment and not always finding like the somber and the serious in some cases. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So yeah, I think it takes a certain degree of talent and empathy to want to deliver that catharsis into kind of these times, because it's also the purpose and the tone of shows, because like sometimes people just, hey, look, this is an escape for us, this is us hanging out, we're gonna just have fun. And for some people going there is fun, for some people avoiding that is fun. And when your team is on board with it and your DM can set up or your players can set up those the build up notes and then the payoff, the emotional hit, I find that incredibly impressive and bold. Like it takes courage to do that, especially if you're not an actor and it's just something that you think, okay, I love this character, we're going to do something cool. And that's why I always appreciate players who are like, okay, no, beat my character up, we're going to do something nuts. So
yeah, I agree with that. I think, there's the thing you say at the end there, there's an air to that I always say this to my players whenever I'm DMing. I'm like, if you want to add a fault to your player that is like glaring and like something that is, you know, like something that is very, like, for example, I played a character in a game that we played, and my character was afraid of the subclass I was playing was Titan Slayer. So I'm intended to fight things bigger than me. However, I'm afraid of anything that is any size bigger than me, basically on the D&D like humanoid creature scale kind of thing. And so I'm rolling constitution checks to see whether I'm running away in combat or whether I'm fighting things, you know. And I love that kind of stuff. I love having that, you know, moment where, you know, a player isn't able to, you know, like you said, you know, a player is getting, you know, a player's like, yes, I want this to be a moment where the team need to save me because this is a struggle, you know. I do love that kind of stuff. And I think, you know, like you said, it just adds those dynamics. But I also, something you mentioned there that I think is such a key part of D&D and the TTRPG space. And I think it sometimes is very black and white. And I think other times it gets really blurred by the community, is that you need to enjoy and seek out the stuff that you enjoy. You know, criticizing stuff that is not of your flavor is not gonna like help them, because they're not gonna change. Like if you go over to, you know, for example, Spawn of Chaos, which is, you know, a very fun show, you know, they're very interesting, but it's quite serious. You know, they're all like heavy actors, and you know, it's quite serious. If you go over there and you're like, oh, why aren't you guys like laughing more? I want to see more like joking. You're like, dude, there is other places for you where there is that stuff, and there is those applicable places. And I agree. I think it's important for people to know that there's always a actual play or a podcast or a stream, you know, out there that does suit the style that you're looking for. And I think that's something that people get right, and definitely people get wrong at times, you know, and can sometimes miss that beat. It's a weird one though, for sure.
Yeah, not to have like this is my first attempt at a seamless transition
ever.
So, but to that point, like first finding a stream that's good for you, but the other side of that is being a stream that tries to find the audience that will be receptive to the stream style. So I know in a lot of the conversations we've had with numerous people in the TTRPG community, Matt, many have said that you, more so than just about anyone, have a really good sense of how to get your brand, how to get your identity out there, how to understand the algorithm of some of these platforms. I'm not sure if there's any like golden rules or there's something that you prescribe to, but it'd be nice. I think people would be really interested to know what has worked for you across whatever platform you think is important to share.
Sure. So I guess going back just slightly to the to when you are a show or a stream or your product, in not understanding who your audience is, that's probably your first problem. Like you need to know who your product is for. It's called your avatar customer, if you will. So if you know what you're making, if you know who it's for, then you know what you're making is what it is. And then you should also know where to find them. So like the demographic for me, if I wanted to do a more serious thing, then I need to know what kind of people are into that and address them more directly. That's just giving you a place to focus and start from. I don't know, for building your brand up, was there any like specific point to start? Because I can do that all day. So
I don't know, maybe some like golden rules, some things that you're like, you know, if you're an up and comer or something, what are some key checkpoints that you're like, you know, if you can address these things, you know, it will put you on a good path, you know, to get you, you know, where you need to be going.
Sure. So if you are, we'll start from like the bare, and if I'm too granular, let me know. So if you have a brand, you have an idea that you want to be in TTRPG or in any creative space or doing anything really, first thing you need to do is you need to research a name that works for you, that is meaningful, and that you think people will either relate to at some point or come to adopt. And once you get it, you need to lock it down on everything. You need the domain, you need all of the socials, all of that, because the worst thing you can do is buy the email address and then find out that, you know, you can't use it anywhere because some random kid has been using it on TikTok for the last year. You know, it's so once you get all that stuff locked down, you got to figure out your brand mood and colors and icons. And if you're going with a logo, you figure that out. Then you need to decide what your voice is. What is important to you? What is your brand statement? So like Gemmed Firefly's brand statement is basically be kind, work hard, punch Nazis. It's pretty much how we do it. So and it's
the triple crown. That's the Holy Trinity, right?
I was gonna say, isn't that what was written in the Bible? Is the Holy Trinity? That's pretty. I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
So yeah, and then it was easier for me because I'm the brand. It's my brand. So I just made sure that when I came out, I was very clear about who I am as a person and what my voice is. Like I will occasionally creatively curse. I used to do it a lot when I came out. And then I kind of like, oh, well, no, I should probably tone it down. But I also mellowed out because like Gemmed Firefly itself was made in like early 2020 at the height of rage in America. So I like Gemmed Firefly was forged in anger. Like the majority of my designs and stuff were either political or depression based, and people really fed into that because it was like I need designs or something to wear that I want to say the things that I want to say, but I don't know how to say them. So it's just here's this, and there's more like me just being like, if I don't put something creative out that expresses this anger, I'm going to freak out. So I just start making art, and it's like memes. So yeah, some of them are depression based, and some like I flip it to kindness and stuff. And that's what my voice sort of became. So that's who that became the brand identity. From then on, and this is just my own evolution with it, I realized I wasn't as angry anymore because things started to shift, and it was a lot of fun, but I also kind of knew that if I didn't start working with something that made me happier, it would bog me down. So that's another thing about your business or your brand. You have to be one with it emotionally. If it starts to feel like a chore, you're done. It's not going to happen. If you haven't made it yet and it hurts to do, just give up.
This is the inspirational part of the
it's getting inspirational. It's coming.
In all serious, when people ask me for advice, my favorite advice to give them, like creatively, like, hey, so what should I do if I'm trying to get to do? I'm like, quit. And then they go what? And then it's like they're either going to come back twice as hard to spite me and they'll succeed, or they will quit and then realize that it wasn't what they wanted to do after all. And it's like, it's like I did a little bit of stand-up for a while, and that was all the advice I ever got from comedians. They're like, no, you should get the hell out of here. I was like, oh, right.
It's do you know, as well as in a weird way, Matt, like, not that you're like culling the community in a way, but you're like you're also doing like I feel like I don't know why it reminds me of like a Kobe Bryant-esque like persona, you know, where it's like this look, man, if you're here to fucking play, then get on the court. If you're not, then fuck off, you know, kind of like
you're wasting everybody's time.
Yeah, exactly. Like no, I appreciate that though, and I think, you know, a lot of what you said is stuff that, and I will outright say this is hilarious. You know, we like have fucked this so hard. Like, I can't tell you, like, for people who are watching and, you know, want to know like about, you know, how to do this, and Matt has done an exceptional job of, you know, for you, like you said, you know, working from the ground up and building your brand, doing this. Tom and I leapt in with an idea, and we started swimming with sharks, and we're just getting chunks taken out of us. And we have, and still at this point, you know, we have conversations. It's got to. I was about to say it's got to be weekly. It's got to be weekly, where we are like,
what's our fucking brand?
Like, what the fuck are we doing? And like we, and slowly we're refining and we're getting down to the core of it more and more over time. But I think, you know, for anyone who is out there listening, follow what Matt says. Don't do this model. Don't do this, because even though this has been fun and we've learned, like, the big thing is we didn't come in with any experience. We didn't come in with any knowledge. We also didn't seek any help because we originally perceived the online community as a lot more competitive and a lot less supportive. And so, you know, we kind of saw it as like, and we weren't in the TTRPG space, which is a lot nicer, to be fair, as well. We saw it as, you know, we're fighting for ourselves here, and, you know, we need to try and, you know, get this out and work for ourselves. And now, you know, if we could go back and redo it, I would have asked, you know, Ali, you know, help us with, you know, graphic design. Matt, talk to us about marketing. Amber, talk to us about rent. Like, I would have gone to all the people we know and been like, you amazing people, give us some advice, you know. And it's interesting.
To your point, though, I mean, and this is to the point that you made, Matt, which is, you know, it's hard, right? The grind is hard, you know, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, whatever. If you're not doing something that you really, really like, it's that's going to be almost impossible. So the reason why we're still fucked in our
it's such a good
is
point.
because we don't want to give up a couple of the things that we really, really like. So, you know, if you looked at the continuum of life, MMA is on one side and TTRPG is on the other, dude. But we love them both, so we're trying to figure out a way to. And I think there's some stuff that's, you know, trying to overlap. And
I think with our like unarmed combat stuff and our class that we're making and stuff at the moment, yeah, I think we're getting there and whatnot. But yeah, it's one of those ones that piece of advice right there would have been so helpful 2 years ago.
Well, here's my thing: would it have, or would we have been like, you know what, Matt, thanks for that advice, but we're still going to do MMA.
Fuck you, we're going to do our own thing.
D&D. So like, we'll live and die with it.
I love it. If anything for you, it's like, I really respect the tenacity of that, because coming out with the idea and the determination, that's what success is. It's showing up, doing it, even when it's difficult. Like that's how legacies are made. Like and yeah, it's daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and it's all small increments, because that's really all you can do on your own. And eventually it all adds up. Like 1 year of hard work is how I got to where I am right now. I've only been in the space for a year.
And do you know what I love? Specifically a sentence you just said. That is how fucking legacies are made. And you know what? It's something that out of all the things, you know, and a lot of people don't know this about Tom and I, you know, because we present as, you know, we're Homie and the Dude, the father and son team, you know, and everyone goes, oh, those two must freaking love holding each other's dicks and being best friends, you know, they must freaking love that, you know. But we at one point had a really bad relationship. It was really tumultuous and we really, really didn't get along. And, you know, the one thing that I respect most about Tom and I have throughout my entire time, even when we didn't get along, and now that we do as adults a lot more, is your determination and your ability to put your head to something and work on something and just go. And I think, you know, in a weird way, you passed a good portion of that on to me. And in a weird way, I've always been resistant to it. You know, as a young gentleman, you know, I always was like, oh, I can see, you know, how you are and how like driven you get about things. And that kind of scared me. And so, you know, I used weed and, you know, a bunch of other things to medicate that kind of, you know, drive and that level of like OCD pushing that you kind of have when you get determined about something. But I think out of all the things that we have going for us, that is the one thing that in our back pocket, both of us, like, and I say this to my partner all the time, you know, if I didn't have, you know, my two best friends that I spend, you know, at least a couple of days a week with, you know, and, you know, a couple evenings here and there with, you know, if I didn't have you who, you know, I love my partner and, you know, that I spend my days and evenings with and holidays and all this kind of stuff, I was like, if it was just me and Tom and we didn't have partners, we didn't have anything else, we didn't have other jobs, I was like, Homie and the Dude would be worldly successful at this point. We would have achieved everything we wanted to because we have the determination, but it's just that it's that finding the time. It's like you said, it's the small increment game that we've realized we're now playing, as opposed to, you know, that perception that we could just blow through some walls and make it to where we wanted to go. And it is that small increment game that we're playing now. So, but it's one of those ones that, you know, does take time to get better at and learn. And, you know, like I said, I respect your level of, you know, of both candor in honesty about, how to go about this, and advice that you give people, but also, the direction that you have taken. I respect you a lot for, who you are in this community and what you bring, the message that you're putting out with the FIG Foundation,
Yes.
what you're doing with Gemmed Firefly, all that stuff, dude. It's really, really big. And I guess I just respect that come up, to where you are, very much so. With that, you mentioned something to us at the beginning of this podcast before we even started recording, and I wanted to just kind of touch on that. You mentioned, you got into the TTRPG space, through, some harder times. Would you be willing to just talk to how you got to, playing TTRPGs and then making the decision, I'm going to step into this community and really go forward with this?
Sure. So my childhood was a bit rough. So we were like off and on homeless and dealing with stuff, and just randomly D&D fell into my lap. Like I had a friend who was like, "Hey, here's D&D," and I'm like, "What is that?" And that like blew my mind with role playing in general. Like I didn't realize it was a thing. I'd never heard of it, and there was freedom in it. And especially for someone who was like as miserable as I was, escape was something very, very important to me as a lifeline to survive. So it's like they're like, "Hey, here's D&D." I'm like, "Can we play?" They're like, "No." So, so I found it again years later, and by then I'm like borderline in and off homeless in inner city Boston. So I'm hanging out with like gang members and drug dealers and surviving. And it sounds awful. Probably some of the most fun I ever had in my life, but it sounds awful. It was difficult. Holy shit, those stories are funny to me. So anyway, we got D&D books. I went out, I bought some, and then once I got my friends at the time playing it, they fell in love with it, and they went out and they stole all the books they could. And they were like, "Hey, there's a bookstore down the street. I'll be right back." So they came back, and we had everything for 3rd edition.
Oh, amazing! Okay.
So yeah, we started playing that, and this is like 1997, and so yeah, instead of going out and doing gang problematic things, we were inside instead playing as paladins and rogues, and often PvP killing each other because it was hilarious. And they just some people really took to it, and it was really cool. And then I saw, like, I don't know, I think it helped a lot of people, and it's tough for me to know that like a lot of people that I was friends with at the time, they didn't make it out of that situation. Like half of them are dead, half of them are incarcerated, and but for a few people that I was like, "Hey, we're gonna hang out, we're gonna play D&D, you're gonna not get arrested today." And then some of them were kind of like, for people who were like tough street people, like you would never like want to step to, they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna play a cute cleric, and this is what we're gonna do." And like he's like fall in love with NPCs and playing it like proper and everything like that. And I'm like, "This is the guy who breaks thumbs on crackheads. What are you doing?" And it's so yeah, it became very I in afterwards recognized the importance and the impact that it can have on teaching people, letting people vent frustrations, that we could use it for almost like simulating different interactions in life. And it's like, yeah, so next time you run into police, what are you going to do?
I'm going to roll a charisma check and I'm going to talk my way out of this shit.
Yeah. Or it's like, I activate my flaming sword. It's like, oh man. So yeah, after that, D&D became like, okay, I got into high school, and it's what I used to turn the popular crowd into huge nerds. And that was great. And I think they still play to this day. And then I put it down for a while. I actually taught it in college for a bit. Taught it to kids. That was a lot of fun. Cool. And then I always wanted to write, but I got into marketing, and I understood that there was no point in writing if I didn't have money or a platform. So I was like, well, I'm not going to get either of those anytime soon, because now we're looking at like 2008 housing bubble, everything broke and Americans are poor. I'm like, yeah, I'm poor. So, so then it was just like, I just did corporate jobs, and then I came back to TTRPG because I was disgruntled with life, and I needed something that made me happy, and that was what D&D does. And here I am.
Look, if ever there's been a legacy story, I think, that is a badass story. I think that's an incredible story. And it seems like, Matt, something that you just perpetuate, it seems to just seep out of your pores, is that you want to help, that you're here to help. Yeah. That you're wanting to help, and there's so many aspects of what you're currently doing, and one that I've been really interested in, because I, as a dungeon master, finding time to write things is always hard, especially like I said, if you are a person who is not doing the Kobe Bryant, I'm gonna literally wake up at 4 a.m, write all day, and then go to sleep at 9 o'clock at night, and eat healthy all that time, and have no friends, no personal life, then it is hard to find time for those things. It's hard to, mix in all that stuff with any average day stuff that you're doing and whatnot. I want to ask you a little bit about your RPG generators that you've kind of created and stuff like that, because I think those are really cool. And, I personally, as a dungeon master, think those are a real great, assist, for DMs, but also for players. If you get stuck in a moment, I think it's a really great thing for that. So I wanted to ask you, what kind of got you to that, and was it this whole, you've seen the effect that helping has had? Was it like straight up, like almost like a straight line of like, I'm now going to create a way to help people who are struggling with writing, or people who in the moment need that quick like release? Was that where that thought kind of went?
It's I don't know, there's a little more to it, I suppose. So my right before I did TTRPG, I had a video game company, and that's kind of where I met Kata. So like we were in esports, and like I did fighting games, she did MOBAs and stuff like that, and she murders me in every game we play. It's not even close, not even close. And it's like, I've won tournaments, and I've never been so destroyed in games. Kata is a force, and I don't understand it. But yeah, working with her has been absolutely fantastic. So since we had that company before, I had some coding chops. So I've always admired the generators for that came up with stuff. But all the generators that I ever used were like numerical. It's always like, I need a weapon, I need stats, I need random gold tables and stuff like that. I'm like, that doesn't really help me. Like, yeah, I guess if I'm playing the game, I might think of it in the moment. So my generators are more specifically to like writing, I know is something I'm talented with. So I'm like, okay, well, here's some story elements. If you just need like character backgrounds, you can use that. If you so one of the things that I made that I don't see anywhere else is a damage descriptor. So
yes, I was going to talk about that. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah, so that was the hardest thing to make. One, because there's nothing like it out there, so I didn't invent it. And then figuring out how to do it and make it actually grammatically correct was a pain. And it took me weeks to make that thing. So now it's like, you just choose the degree of injury, the type of weapon. And I think if it's, I forget, something else. But once you get those three things in line, it'll be like, oh yes, the weapon, the if it's like a critical, it'll say like the vicious edge comes in and cleaves clean or something like that. And trying to make it uniform among all of the buttons is a challenge. I like that. So
it's amazing. And first of all, I want to circle quickly back to something that I was just thinking about throughout the whole time that you're telling your little intro story as well. I'm just imagining, the scene in the movie where they like go to the back room poker table and the camera does like a 360 around all of the characters, and each of them has like a distinguishing feature. I just imagine your D&D table as a young gentleman being filled with quite a cast of players, and it being a fun one to, like, as the dungeon master, just like look around your table and be like, wow, just like, geez. But
Yeah.
no, what I was going to say with the combat thing is two things. One, I find out of everything that I do as a dungeon master, and I think Tom agrees with this, my combat descriptions are the thing that I'm most proud of. Like, I can really get gory, and like, for to be fair, depending on the table I'm playing with, I definitely, reduce my levels of gore depending on who I'm playing with. But if a table is happy for me to go all out, I will give like some pretty brutal like descriptions of combat, because we love MMA, and I love and have enjoyed combat movies, combat martial arts. I've done them, I've been a part of all that stuff.
Weapons.
I love it all, massively.
Yep.
So I think it's a big part of it, and I know a lot of people do struggle with that kind of stuff. Something that I wanted to throw out there as well is, at some point we're currently working on a mixed martial artist class for D&D. And it would be awesome to maybe when we bring that out and we start looking at doing our Kickstarter stuff for it, be great to talk to you about maybe creating a generator for unarmed combat damage or something.
That
like
could be
that.
fun. Yeah, sure.
That'd be real cool.
That'd be cool.
It was just something that went through my head. I was like, that'd be real cool. But I love what you said about how you're doing it so that it can, for yourself, you feel like apt in it. Like I said, I feel apt in combat descriptions, but I know so many people that are like, my partner, for example, who plays in our family game, is not the type of person. She is like a nature-loving lefty, like hippie, eco freaks who's definitely not thinking about, cleaving someone's arm off and separating it at the shoulder joint so that you can see like the exposed cartilage, and she's not that person, so that kind of thing would be completely valuable to her.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm in the same boat. Like, when I play with my wife, she I'll do the so how do you want to, and then you'll just be like, I hit him. I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to say here? I'm just like, yeah, I know you're not good at this part. I get it. And like, and then it's also like, I see people on streams and stuff, and they go deer in headlights when it's like, you crit. And how do you want to end this creature?
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's like, oh no, I can feel that anxiety of being on the spot, not knowing what to say. It's like, you're not going to remember my sight at that moment, but if you did,
I fully agree with that.
Yeah. No, I totally feel for you on the martial arts part too. Like, my dad was a 3rd degree black belt, and he taught me karate. So,
Hey,
I know a little bit of it. I'm not super practiced in it anymore. And then later on, I found out, like, recently in the last like year or two, that it's not karate. It's Indonesian silat. So it's
shit.
So yeah,
amazing.
like watching the raid, I'm like, I know that move. What are you doing?
You're like, that is in no way Japanese at all. that fighting style is in no way. Dude, that's so amazing. Salat's such an interesting martial arts style. That's so interesting. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No.
Yeah.
I was just reflecting, Matt, on your. I mean, in some ways, we have some commonality in that we are a bit diverse in what our interests are, and what our, we have thumbs in a couple of different pies that we really, really like. And it seems like you do as well. And so how important is it for you? Because, we're the one limiting resource that we have is our time and our time and energy, right? And if we're spread too thin, even though we might be good at a bunch of stuff, it's this concept of, are you a spear that's penetrating marketplace and going far and long, or are you a sort of a snowplow, and and making incremental gain across many different areas. And it seems like you have been able to find a really nice balance of penetrating markets, but also being a bit diversified as well. How much of that is strategic, and how much of that is just kind of just organically, this is kind of what's happening?
It's a bit of both. I'd say the lawful end is the determination. It's like, I know what I need to do. I have to do this. I have no choice to do this. But it's the chaos that is like my driving factor. And I just kind of like literally, like, all my notes and stuff, they're written on junk mail. This is my itinerary. And it's like, if I lose this junk mail, then maybe it wasn't that important. And like, I'll just keep going. And like, that's what it is. And Like I know what I need to try to keep up on, but sometimes if I don't, then I have to understand either in the moment that one, I screwed up and I need to get better, or that something that took priority was more important to do at the time, and I made the right choice at the time. And that's something that sharpens my judgment. So I very gradually get better at it. Or sometimes I can be like, listen, I'm overwhelmed. Some of this stuff is going to fall behind, and I get to practice my communication about that. So I just kind of go with it and just try to grow with every failure. And there are many, many, many failures. And it's a learning exercise, and you just get better because you have a choice. So
yeah, it's a similar conversation that we often have, which is, you know, what is the thing that is exciting us most right now? Like, because we can, you know, we are sort of balancing 3, 4, 5 things. We're trying to reduce it down to a couple things. But even in that case, you know, when we're thinking about, okay, next week we've got these slots, what are we going to do? And oftentimes, you know, the thing that wins is, what do we want to do? Like, what is the thing that feels, you know, as far as like artistically, underneath all that is the grind going on for whatever it is that's supporting it. With you, so these days, like, what is the thing that gets you most excited about your stuff, about all the different aspects of whether it's Dungeon Glitch or, you know, Gemmed Firefly or some of the other things that
Foundation, RPG generators.
Yeah. So all of it is ultimately connected. If it were a forest, there's mushrooms grabbing at everything. It's all, you know, everything ties back to the brand. If it doesn't, then I don't do it. That's the main part. So jumping around, it's either I prioritize by deadline and also what I can do. I'm fortunate that I have Kata as a business partner, because she'll pick up the slack on things that I can delegate to her. And I have support from my 2 loved ones, and that's excellent. But otherwise, it's just kind of like me just kind of going, I don't sleep, let's just do this. And yeah, it's funny, like my distraction is, though, I get my, I don't know, dopamine from helping people. So it's like, I got to help 5 people so that I can do one thing for myself. And let's just make this happen. So I'll pop into, someone will DM me and I'll go off for like an hour on, no, you should do this is what I do, blah. And here's some resources and whatever. And it's a lot of fun. And I don't know. I just find purpose in being the person I wish I had when I was at various stages, either in life or in projects. So it's like, I didn't have a mentor growing up. So if I can help people with things I've learned in life, I try to do that. If, excuse me, if I can help people with projects, so I can help them save money or, sorry, explain a pitfall that I hit, I can prevent them from hitting it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I said this earlier, you know, it seems like it bleeds from your very soul that you want to help people. And, you know, even from being a young person, you know, wanting to help people in, you know, your community, you know, put themselves on a right path all the way through to now, you know, whether it be for, and it's funny that you say it, because it's something that I'll talk about in a minute that I kind of learned. But whether it's for semi like selfish reasons, so you can go and do your own thing, you know, so you can be like, okay, I've helped people, I've done the thing that I need to do, so now I'm going to go do my thing. I fully understand that, and I think, you know, in life, everyone finds like their like thing that gives them the dopamine, that serotonin hit. Do you know what I mean? And some people, it's, you know, going to the gym and flexing in the mirror and feeling like good about how they look. You know, some people it's, you know, going out drinking with their friends and being a social person. You know, every person kind of has their own thing. And I know for me, you know, something when I was in a really dark place and I was going through some therapy and whatnot, one of the things I was taught was, if you need a dopamine hit, if you are down, be creative, create something for pure passion. Do not create something for work, create something for passion that you want to create. 2 was exercise. Get out and do some sort of exercise. If it's running on the spot, if it's, pull-ups, if it's skateboarding, if it's kicking a football, hitting a tennis ball, whatever you need to do some sort of exercise. And the final one was service. And service is kind of presented as the topic of service was always presented as you do unconditional things for other people that give you absolutely no benefit, in of that, you go out of your way to help other people. And all three of those things are meant to, as humans, hit us with big loads of serotonin, big loads of dopamine. What's interesting about all of that is, and I then said this to my therapist, I was like, it's great that I have all these tools, and especially the service one, I'm like, how do I then, I'm like, now that you've told me this though, how do I now go about doing things for other people without knowing that I'm doing this for me? Because it's now a serotonin boost for me. It's like, how am I not doing it for myself in the long run? But it's why, and if you ever meet anyone who knows me like personally and like has seen me like typically walking around like a public city or walking around a public space, I often stop and will be like, hey, you look amazing today, Mr.
Yes.
Stranger with, an amazing hat. Or I just have to tell you that piece of music you're playing is incredible. And it's because for me, that's how I get my little bits of dopamine. And I do it by, complimenting people and, offering, help and advice and bits like that. So I fully understand that like wavelength that you're on, because it's one of those ones, especially the mentor one as well. Like I know for years, I was searching, you and I didn't really get along, and I was searching for more of like a father figure in my life for a very long time until we kind of got on, and, I've been able to find that again in you. And it's one of those ones where if I can give that back, and I know I've got a couple of friends that at this point, not that they rely on me, but friends that, don't maybe have so many other friends and, don't have the best support system, don't have family, that I do go out of my way to make sure I'm there for, and be, an advice giver of like, cool, this is how we're going to do your CV so that you can, your resume, so we can apply for jobs together and help you apply for jobs. It's weird that, and I come back to it, I don't need to do any of that. I don't know why I do any of that. I don't have the fucking time to do any of that. Yeah. But, it's one of those things where, like you said, Matt, it's just, you get your boost from it. So you do it to help other people as well as also yourself in kind of a weird roundabout, Buddhist wheel of continuation kind of thing, So I really, really appreciate that. And talking about helping people, your FIG Foundation, the Foundation for Inclusive Gaming, is awesome. I want to talk about, obviously, Allies is like the main kind of runner of that, but I know you guys work very closely to that, and you're kind of sponsored or supported by that. Talk to me a little bit about why, that's super important to you, and especially within the community and times that we're living in, why is that a driving force of what you're, promoting and is out there at the moment?
Sure. So FIG, for those just hearing about it now, is the Foundation for Inclusivity in Gaming. And the motto is to delight, decode, and decolonize. And it's for ultimately, if you're looking at TTRPG on a grand scale, it is difficult to deny that most of the people, most of the creators, the taste makers, the people who make all the decisions and tell you what works and what doesn't, they're all white males. And from there, like FIG's goal is for helping promote BIPOC creators, people of color, and LGBT alphabet mafia folk to higher places within the industry. So it's not like at all, it's about being basically putting your money where your mouth is for it. So it's like, you want to help people, you want to see this thing happen. People go, oh yeah, great, like, and then never think about it again. FIG is about making sure that these people get the support they need, get promotions they need. Through right now, they have the Magnificent Mythology program, which will bring currently BIPOC creators to the stream, and then they'll make a one-shot on Twitch, and then it gets produced and then sold, and all proceeds go to that artist. So now you have your BIPOC creator and they're getting paid, and now they're in the industry. And it's kind of like training wheels to get them out the door. And it's actually making a difference. Like, I didn't have anything produced before. It's literally the first things content I ever put out. I currently now have 2 out there, and they're doing pretty all right. Yeah, I think we're at somewhere like 20 sales so far, and it's been a week. So,
oh wow,
I wish it was more. Like, I want to get copper as soon as possible, because I know that if it works, then it demonstrates to not only the supporters and those who don't support, but it shows that the TTRPG community does support seeing the growth of BIPOC creators and eventually LGBT creators as it spans into that. I only very recently joined that project. It was after my things were made. I'm now a board member. So
amazing.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen. It wasn't my goal, but I fell in love with the campaign, with the program, with the team. And they're like, hey, do you want to join? I'm like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you know what? I think, you know, in the space, in the time that we're in as well, it's one of those things that is so important. You know, we need to have more of this inclusivity. You know, it's something that Tom and I, you know, when we were talking about our actual play stream, you know, we very much, you know, when we were thinking about our cast and things like that, you know, it's something that we talked about very much so, and wanted to make sure that, you know, we were inclusive and had, you know, people of all strands of life in it. The one that, you know, I'm not sure if you ever feel this, not that I've ever like wanted to be like, oh, you know, I want to deal with what, you know, BIPOC people deal with, but also I fucking hate being a white man and being another white man in the TTRPG community, you know, and being just another one perpetuating the white nerd in the basement man stereotype. You know, I definitely wanted to alter some of that, but I think, you know, first of all, as someone who is part of LGBTQ plus, you know, myself, I appreciate, you know, that message. I love it. I think it's huge. I think, you know, it means a lot to myself and many people like myself out there. And I think it's really, really great to have that level of, you know, someone thinking about it, you know, someone who isn't just the people dealing with these situations, the people living in these, you know, in these communities as part of these cultures, as part of, you know, races, whatever it might be. You know, it's good that we are starting to outsource this and getting it to be something where the wider audience, the wider, you know, community are beginning to think about this as well, and you know, really put it into the forefront. And I think it's really, really great. And by the way, I just want to say I love what you guys are doing. And I'm sure, you know, in some ways, you know, like, fuck it, it's got to feel really good to be part of that board, dude. Like, it's got to feel fucking great to be a part of something like that, a movement like that, you know, irregardless of, you know, ego and whatever. It's just got to fucking feel great to be on the side of, you know, doing something for some good of the people, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's on brand for me, and it's like so it's great because I really respect the team and what they're doing and everything. And for my personal experience, race has always been a difficult thing for me, because I understand that at a quick glance I can be white passing. You know, if a cop stops me, I'm white, don't kill me. But like, in reality though, I'm Native American, I'm Hawaiian, I'm Indonesian, I'm Chinese, and I have all these various little parts. Like, I have a touch of white. I have Viking. That's why I'm so fuzzy. It's and it's a little there. But being mixed in itself has been difficult as an experience in general, because while I am technically part of these cultures or have touches to these cultures, I'm ultimately rejected by all of them. And it's so weird. It's an awful feeling to be like, I have these genes, but they're meaningless. Like, if you're rejected by a community and a whole thing of people, I can be like, oh yeah, hey, I'm part Native American, and they're like, no, you're not. It's like, oh, I guess I'm not now. So what do you do knowing that, like, you know, 1/16 or whatever of your heritage is blank? And when for me going around to all of the different cultures and stuff, it's like I don't speak Chinese. I don't know anyone from various places or anything like that. So it's like literally like my card is actually like blank. And it wasn't until recently mingling with some people in the TTRPG community who are much more eloquent about addressing these kind of things, about recognizing the proper terminology in social labeling, social psychology, that kind of thing. That I sort of came to understand that being mixed on the outside of everything in itself is a valid experience. And that's my culture. My culture is not being in your culture, it's just seeing your culture. That's my culture. So it's like, okay, that's I'm doing this.
Super interesting.
And then when Fig comes along, they're like, no, you're cool. I'm like, oh, hell, finally.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, cool, fine, awesome. Yeah. And
do you know what?
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really interesting, point that you just made about that space in between spaces, in some cases. And I think a lot of people find themselves in that kind of space of in between spaces. They don't know where to fit. They don't, like you said, at this point, labels are one that are, those with a certain label like to protect their label because, it's all that we have at this point in time with the amount of outreach of information and whatnot. It's in some cases all that certain people have. And, it's really interesting that you mentioned, that even within, being a part of, like the genome of these communities, you are, in some way, not able to interact with them and be part of that. And I think, something you mentioned about the TTRPG community being one of the first spaces where you've, met people who have, told you, that it's okay to be in that kind of mid space or, so on and so forth. I think for, like just honestly for me and Tom, like I've, dealt with, the whole, LGBTQ plus stuff my whole life and whatnot, and have seen that side of, the problematic side of, life, don't get me wrong. I'm not dealing with racism as such, don't get me wrong. Being a white kid in Spain who's American when I grew up wasn't the easiest of things, I must admit, but it's not exactly racism in of the sense. And so I think, it's one of those things where the TTRPG community has taught me and Tom a lot. It's taught us a lot about, what we should be doing, where we should be, what we should be thinking about, who we should be considering. And, I'm not afraid to say, a couple years ago, I wasn't in the headspace that I am in now in terms of, the levels of support that I do want to provide. And it's not that I didn't believe in that. It's just I wasn't actively thinking about it. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't day-to-day life thinking about inclusivity and, all this different stuff because it just wasn't something that was super prevalent to me. And I'm so thankful for the refreshing like plunge into the TTRPG community it has been, because it's given us a lot of space to grow and a lot of space to become better people and understand communities better and support people that we really believe in. And so I think all round the TTRPG community, though at times can be toxic like any community, and it's a very small proportion of the community, it's a beautiful place for people to come and, learn about themselves as well as also many other things and people and cultures and so on and so forth. I'm not sure if, you feel a similar experience with, just the community as a general in terms of being accepting and whatnot, but I've never felt safer.
Yeah, no, when I first found the Twitter RPG group, I was shocked. Like, I was coming in from Reddit, which is awful, and I was coming in from Facebook, where at the time there were 4 main D&D groups. 3 of them were racist, like on their banner, racist, and so it was like coming in from that. I went to Twitter to do Gemmed Firefly stuff, and I was like kind of getting away from Facebook. Some people had recommended Twitter just in general. It's like, yeah, no, you think a lot, you post a lot of trash. Go ahead. So it's like, so like, yeah, all right, sure. And then I get into it, and I found hope, and I found like hope for TTRPG, and then and I found the Jaspers Discord. From Jaspers, I got into a game, and that's how I started playing online, meeting people. But through once I got into it, it just blew my mind how like I'm like, this is a treasured bubble in reality that I really need to just kind of protect. So that's kind of like what I do. I try to do anyway. So
you're doing a great job. We need you to fight Elon Musk off now. Jeez.
Yeah, hey, we'll see. I don't know. It's like I'm really hoping that like he finds out how difficult it is and then leaves it alone, because so we'll see. But then again, it's not like the last CEO was doing anything good anyway. So
yeah. I mean, I'm just sat here begging for an edit button as a dyslexic. I'm just like, please God, just give me an edit button so I can rectify my spelling mistakes. The amount of times I have to send the comment, which is like my rectified spelling with the asterisk. I'm just like, son of a bitch. But no, yeah, that's it. Yeah, one of those ones where super glad to be part of this community. Go for it.
What I really like about Fig is you're kind of replicate. So systemically, stuff is rigged for people that aren't in Fig, right? And what you've created is almost like a little micro mechanism to even the playing field a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Like that's a super clever way to give some boost to people that are up against it every day, every second of every day, because the system is rigged. And so, why not just try to recalibrate it a little bit just for, this little space? And I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I respect the hell out of it.
I didn't come up with Fig, but Kyle, who runs it, he sat me down for like a 90-minute pitch, and he's like, all right, this is going to take a while. And he got 2 sentences in. I'm like, I'm in. That's it. I'll just do it. That's it.
And you know what? I think that's all that was needed. And it seems like, like you said, two lines, because like we've said throughout this whole podcast, you're the person that's looking to help. You're the person that's wanting to support and wanting to care. And, that's been the theme. And, I think for me, I'd like to, at this point, as we kind of round out here, just say, anyone who doesn't know Matt, doesn't follow Matt, doesn't, check out, purchase the Gemmed Firefly, amazing t-shirts and clothing that is there, which honestly, if you need a piece of clothing that you want people to laugh at and have a great time when they see, that is the place there. I have never been so like just loving D&D like stuff. I say every Christmas to family members, I'm like, if you were going to get me D&D clothes, here is the website. Every time I'm like, this is the one that I want it from, because supporting people that I love and also really great stuff. So if you haven't yet, please go check out Matt's stuff. Matt, I'll quickly hand it over to you for anything you want to shout out, anything you're working on, anything that's coming up, any streams you're a part of or anything. Feel free to have the floor.
Sure. Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for having me on. Because like as you mentioned before, is like everyone had equally mentioned to me that I would get along and love you as well. And I started following things. I'm like, these guys are so fucking rad. It's like, these guys are awesome. Like I'm telling my wife, I'm like, dude, they do D&D and MMA. It's fucking the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then I joined your Discord and you have both. And I'm like, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. So I was super and like getting to know you you both, it's been a lot of fun, and like I have a lot of respect too for like Bodhi, your self-awareness is how I know that whenever you hit difficulty in things, you're going to adapt because you're honest with yourself, and that's where growth happens, and that's where success lies. So even through this interview, as you're talking about things in your thought process, you're fucking unstoppable. So keep going. And I am so excited to see where both of you go and keep going, because I'm going to be supporting you the whole way. So
thank you.
I'm super excited. So
thank you. I appreciate that. And honestly, self-awareness comes from this guy. This guy has beaten that shit into me for years. I was an egotistic maniac when I was a kid. And Tom, through his discovering of meditation and self-reflection, has then passed that on to me and allowed me to, reflect and grow as a human being. So all that praise, I'll just quickly just John Danaher that over to you and pass that on to the coach, to the main influence. But no, honestly, that means the absolute world. That really, really does mean the absolute world. Thank you.
Thanks, dude, for the shout out. But this was your shout out.
Yeah, this is
yeah. I'm not really good at talking about myself though. It's like, and so it's like, yeah. So about me, I talked to Tom this week, and he is super professional. So if you're looking for someone to, it's I don't know, it's a defense mechanism, but also it's like I really appreciate the people that I work with and the people that I get to interact with, because it adds richness to my life and my experience and all this stuff. So when I talk about my things, it's not like I just made it in a vacuum. It's this influence from people. It's feedback from people. So Gemmed Firefly, I made it. It's my creative outlet for D&D and emotion stuff and rage. Like our best-selling thing is still the fuck around and find out gator flag. It's our number one item, and it has been since we put it up. Like if you Google fuck around and find out gator flag, we should still be top of Google for it. Because
nice.
we invented it. So and then if I do an appropriate plug, I own Gemmed Firefly. We make goofy t-shirts and random stuff. So you might see that stuff around town. I do the music. I guess the important thing to talk about is Fig. If you're a BIPOC creator, if you are an LGBT creator, or you want to support either of these fantastic voices and you want to hear more about them in the community, definitely check out Fig and Kyle, who is I believe at Allies Nerd on Twitter. We just put a website up. I'm going to be on the board, so you're going to be hearing a lot about it now that I'm running the marketing. I just put out 2 magnificent mythology one-shots. One is based on my Native American heritage, and it's a murder mystery ghost story, and I got to see it run, and it is awesome. It throws you through all the emotional loops that I was hoping to do. The other one is based on my Indonesian background. So that covers Rongda, who is the Indonesian version of Kali, like the goddess of death. But the way that I look at it, though, is because I am mixed race, I'm allowed to criticize. It's because it's like, I'm not really in your culture, so here's what it means to me. So I get to do that. And I actually gave her a much better story, I think, than what the culture has provided, because I think she deserves it. So that's a cool one. It's called Wrath and Redemption, and that's a moral quandary story. Done right.
Awesome. Incredible. Can I ask one final thing? What was can you just repeat the motto, the tagline for Gemmed Fireflies for me? Can you just remind me of that?
Yeah, I've heard it around before, but it's ultimately be kind, work hard, punch Nazis.
And with that, this has been another episode of Homie and the Dude. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode. It's been such a pleasure. If you guys didn't know, we have an actual play podcast, which is now live. We've got 3 episodes up. Go check it out. Otherwise, we make D&D content. We make MMA content. If you want to find out when that stuff is coming out, you can follow us on Twitter or join our Discord server, which there will be a link to in the description of this video. Otherwise, subscribe to the YouTube and thank you guys.
YouTube is so fun. Sorry, the YouTube is so fun. If you haven't seen it, you have to get in there. Like the advertisements, everything like that. So just charming. They're fantastic. You gotta check them out. Check them out.
Thank you so much. And guys, remember, be kind, work hard, punch Nazis.
Right.
Thank you, guys. Catch you in the next one. Later, guys.